Issei Fuentes, and he's going to share with us some of the societal or social impacts of recreational drug use among young people. You
Yes.
take it away. Take it away, Issei.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned before in my intro, a lot of the education that we provided originally when we first launched everything was obviously in regards to underage drinking. And as, time has progressed, we have kind of seen a lot more of, how society reacts to alcohol and everything. Now with marijuana was again always has been an issue that's been out there, but it's also been so hyper focused. When we added drugged driving within our mission statement in 2015, it was because Colorado at that point was about to legalize recreational marijuana. And yeah, there were a couple states here and there that did recognize it officially at that by that point. But Colorado was the first big state, and they were essentially the guinea pig for bigger states that then followed years later on. And now with New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, soon to be Connecticut as well, to also recognize, here in the Northeast, there are a lot of, fears too, when it comes to that. But the one thing that we've seen a couple of different things. So, Faith, you mentioned something towards the beginning in regards to the exposure that a lot of kids have today, in regards to just marijuana. So when it comes to alcohol specifically, studies have shown that kids as young as 8 years old start having thoughts about alcohol, which is just scary to begin with because I have a nephew at home who is just 8 years old. But kids today are super, super smart. I have a nephew who's two who knows how to navigate everything on YouTube Kids and all his apps on his iPad the way that he wants it and everything. They're super smart. And now that also, a lot of kids, have social media and they are exposed to all these things, TikTok, for example, there isn't like moderations in which, a user can do to see, well, I'm only want to see creators that are this specific age. They get exposed to everything. So anything from adults to all these people. And all these people that are constantly going viral are people that are super young or perhaps they're of age, but using drugs and using alcohol. And of course, what we've always seen when among teens or anyone is that if there is someone who they of course idolize, they kind of want to do the same thing as well. So like their peer pressure mentality that we always see in schools, and kind of like what you said too before, or as well, Faith, in regards to like, they just want to do what other kids are doing. It's That's high school. High school kids just want to fit in. They want to be part of the crowd, even though as adults we kind of look back and at our high school days and say, yeah, no, why did I do that, and follow the crowd. But that's how kids are. So we have seen a lot of different things when it comes to when I go into schools to do educational programs. So, for example, there's a question that we ask all the teens out there, within our Power of Youth presentation. So the question is, how many teens admit to being the passenger in a car with an impaired driver? So we did a study with State Farm a couple of years back, and based on that study, which looked at teens from different age brackets all across the country, 1 in 3 teens have admitted to being the passenger in a car with an impaired driver. And whenever I ask that question to groupings of teens, no matter where I go, whether it's in New York or New Jersey, a lot of teens um, have said they've done it, and a lot of kids don't really realize the dangers when it comes to that, and that's a really scary thing. But the one thing that is very different is that kids understand the dangers when it comes to alcohol. They also understand the easiness of looking for an Uber if they need one, if someone is perhaps impaired. What they don't see is the dangers when it comes to the marijuana aspect. And because they hear all these great things about it, kind of like what Dr. Tench mentioned a little bit too, you mentioned Faith as well, that they hear the great things about it, but again, doctors are still trying to figure that out, all those things. There's still a lot of just misconceptions, a lot of things that we're just not aware about. And of course, as Dr. Tench said as well, this isn't our grandparents marijuana. It's extremely different. The What we're seeing out there today, it's not the same. So they think it's a big deal. They don't think it's a big deal, and they just want to try it too. So when it comes to our parent presentation, we always try to educate our parents on having those conversations and starting those conversations at home early. There's a lot of times I, of course, have seen it with my parents, that they try to put white lies and make sure that they, of course, if there's a question asked, because one of the objections that we see from parents when I do presentations is, well, if I don't want to tell my kid that I started drinking at an early age. But the thing is that if you start off with honesty, if they say, hey, did you start drinking at an early age, or did you start doing marijuana at an early age, just say, yes, yes, I did do that, but this is the reason why I did it. But also, the thing that we sometimes parents do forget, the laws were really different back then in regards to alcohol. The legal drinking age was at 18 at a time in the United States. It wasn't at 21 yet, because that didn't happen until the 80s. So if there is a parent that did, was drinking technically legally at 18, wherever state they reside, then they technically are okay. But even though they were still drinking, now considered underage for us in 2022. So it's always good to come from a position of honesty, sharing the thoughts and sharing facts, but also making sure that a teen out there feels that they can come to their parent when it comes to anything that is out there. For myself, as parents of immigrants that came here in the United States in the 80s, they I'm the second out of six. They started off educating us on their teachings that they were taught in their home country. But with my youngest siblings, their teaching style and parenting style completely changed. With us, it was always, no, it's my rules, it's my house, you got to listen to me, and that's it. But then, with my youngest siblings, the tides changed. They provided them, like, well, why are you doing this? Can you explain? Make me understand. And this is the reason why I don't want to do it, which is the parenting style that we always highly recommend when it comes to having those conversations. Because, then that teen will be more forthcoming, to coming to their parent if there's a question, if there's a concern, if they have a fear, or if for some reason they need a ride late at night. Because, of course, at the end of the day, parents might be upset that they're getting a call and um from their kid in the middle of the night, but at the end of the day, you know, their child did the right thing, not making sure that they don't get into a car with someone who could be impaired on drugs or alcohol or both, and finding a safe ride to get home. And that's, of course, something that we want hands down, because we want teens to be safe. We want everyone to be safe. We don't want more people getting caught and by driving impaired whatsoever. It's taxing for so many people. It's taxing for law enforcement. It's taxing for the community. It's taxing for victims and survivors that we work with every day at Mothers Against Drunk Driving, because we don't want people getting affected on either side of the spectrum. So any way that we can talk to teens and making sure that they're not alone is always a great thing. But also making the most transparent way possible, but also letting them know that times are changing. We have to look at accurate facts. We have to look at specifically from medical professionals, because they're the ones, of course, that have that best knowledge of what is out there. New Jersey, for example, is doing doing a really great job in regards to educating the public on just the impaired driving aspect. Eric Heitman, who is a director of highways for New Jersey, we are partners with him, and they launched this amazing campaign in New Jersey with billboards and promotions everywhere, and making sure that we can educate everyone on just doing the right thing at the end of the day is always a plus for us. So any way that we can converse to our teens is a great thing. Try to limit their exposure is always a great thing too. But also letting them know that, if they don't feel comfortable talking to a parent, talking to another friend, talking to a coach. I know that there's several, coaches here as well, a teacher, a guidance counselor. Anyone out there is always a good thing. And making sure that they don't feel alone, because there's always a point that a teen will feel alone out there. The one thing that I also will mention too is um, I myself, as I mentioned, am firstborn generation American here. Um, and I do every once in a while do presentations in schools that have a high population of immigrant families that do come from other countries. A lot of these newcomers, no matter where they come from, whether it's the Caribbean, Central, South America, um, they come here. It's already culture shock because they're learning so much, but also it's the difference in behaviors in regards to drugs and alcohol. A lot of these, their home countries don't properly monitor anything. They perhaps have laws, but law enforcement doesn't do as much. So I always like to make sure that we can educate them on what the laws are as well, making sure that they're fully aware that we have differences here in regards to certain things, when it comes to drugs and alcohol. And any way that we can do that, because I myself am bilingual, I can do my presentations every once in a while in Spanish. I always try to do that too and insert that in there into the community. So making sure that also our minority populations, no matter where you may be, they're fully aware about this too, because it is a demographic that a lot of people, they don't fully comprehend, understand, and they of course want to make sure that they feel comfortable hearing it from someone who of course they feel comfortable with. So I really appreciate everyone hearing me out. I definitely learned a lot already from Dr. Tench. I wrote a bunch of things down. Looking forward to everyone else too. So thank you so much.